Hi there, welcome to Bible Size Chat. Jason, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Come on, Jason. So we do all of this on a computer, and it has a little video thing, and we film it, and then sometimes, because our computer is a little bit older,
Every other time.
Every third time, it seems like. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, the computer freezes, and then we end up with having to redo it. So here we are, take two. Don't sigh like that. Come on.
I'm totally joking.
No, I know. Okay, so we've been talking about elder responsibilities, elder qualifications.
Hard.
Okay, so difficult stuff. Why is it difficult?
It's hard on the heart because I think if you're a believer and you read through this, especially if you're an elder or a pastor, right, it's prudent.
Yeah.
Am I? Maybe not.
Yeah.
You know, you immedially just... Like,
it's a high standard.
To what degree am I prudent?
Yeah.
I'm only mildly prudent. Is that good enough? You know, I mean, you start...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Self-evaluation.
Yeah, in a good way. I mean, you don't want to go and just go too far in that, in a sinful, unbelieving way.
Of course.
But I think there's a good, healthy self-examination just that, I mean, any virtue or vice list in the New Testament, you start reading through one of those, you're like,
yeah,
some of them.
And what about ladies? Like, what if you had a lady who's listening to this? What would you say to her?
Oh, good question.
I would say, don't worry about that.
Well, husband of one wife, you just flip it the other way.
That's actually interesting. Paul does that, right?
With 1 Timothy 5, with widows, right? Well, wife of one husband, one man. So I would say, for the ladies, these are Christian virtues. Yeah. These are not just for elders.
Male elder virtues.
Yeah, but you can find all of these in other lists in other places. So of course, we don't want you to be pugnacious.
Yeah, of course.
Whether you're an elder, not an elder, or a woman.
Yeah, totally. Okay, that's super helpful. Okay, so last time we did husband of one wife, and like you said, that he uses that in 1 Timothy 5 to talk about widows.
Yep.
And now we're going to kind of move to another aspect of the family.
Yes.
Which is kids.
Right.
So what does Paul say about kids in 1 Timothy 3 and Titus 1?
Yes.
What does he say about children?
Yes.
And then maybe we'll talk about why that's a qualification issue.
Absolutely. 1 Timothy 3, 4, and 5, and then Titus 1, verse 6. Okay? Yep. So they both go right at, well, I shouldn't say that. No. So, okay, in Titus 6, he says, having children who believe, not accused of dissipation or rebellion.
Okay.
So we can't get into this at length, but I just think that's not a helpful translation.
Which isn't helpful?
1:6 is NAS's translation, who believe, children who believe.
Okay.
Because that could sound like, you have to have elders have to have believing children in order to be qualified to be elders.
Got it. Yeah.
Well, what if the child is an infant?
Yeah.
Are you not probationary?
Yeah.
It doesn't say that.
Yeah.
So I think that you can define that also lexically, but also by looking at the parallel in 1 Timothy 3, verse 4 and 5, where he says the same thing but differently.
Yeah.
To explain maybe what that means, or parallel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He must be one who manages his own household well. Okay. What does that look like? Keeping his children under control with all dignity.
Okay.
So children who believe are those who are kept under control with all of the dad's dignity.
Okay.
The elder or the elder candidate's dignity.
So he has dignity in the way that he's parenting.
Right.
So he's not like screaming at them.
Certainly
or attacking them with sticks. And,
or just verbally abusing them, anything like that.
So he's dignified in his behavior, but his kids obey.
Are under control, obey. Yeah.
So how does that relate to the believing in Titus 1:6?
Because that word can also mean faithful.
Okay.
Yeah, not just believing as in a believer believing, but someone who is faithful to something. So in this case, we would say the child under control, under the dad, is one who is faithful to dad and mom, or dad in this case.
Yeah.
And not being unfaithful by living a life of dissipation and rebellion.
Yeah. Okay. So we don't use the word dissipation much. What is that?
Loose living, prodigal son stuff.
Yeah.
Reckless. Morally, just abandoning your dad's principles outright in his face. And again, this is a characteristic issue.
Yeah.
This is not like they did one thing one time.
One failure.
Yeah. So we would say believe is a tough translation there, because then that gets really tricky. Do you have to have only professing baptized believers as children in order to be an elder?
Yeah.
So then, well, again, at what age? What if your kids are little?
Yeah.
So then you can't be a pastor.
Yeah. So it's interesting too, because in Titus 1:6 he seems to define it by the contrary, right? So
not accused of.
Yeah, not accused of. So having children who are faithful, not accused of, as opposed to having children who believe, not accused of. So if they're believers, it would not necessarily make sense that they wouldn't be accused of something.
Exactly. And you could have unbelieving children who are not living morally loose lives and rejecting their parents' authority. And that's his point.
So rebellion there, rejecting their parents' authority. What does that look like?
Like kicking their parents to the curb, saying, I'm done, I'm out of here. And they can be 15, 16 and do that. We know that happens, right? Or just overt, verbal, outright by behavior, even if they're living at the home, just constant overt rejection of parental direction, authority. I mean, just constant. Yeah. Regular.
So either of those count.
Either,
Those would both meet that standard of rebellion,
Yeah.
and dissipation is just a life of loose living,
Yeah.
not under control in the sense in a moral sense.
way, yeah, whatever that looks like, fighting with people, drinking. I mean,
Yeah,
all sorts of
partying,
things.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so you take all that, put it together.
Yeah.
So we have children. So fathers caring for their family in such a way that their children are more or less under control, under their authority.
Yes.
So that they are proven to be good managers of their own houses.
For
so that they
3:5.
can, they can manage the Church of God.
Yes.
Okay, so here's the question: why that? Like, it seems a little unfair. I mean, I can see like all these other categories are attached to the guy,
Just
like
himself.
prudence or
Yeah.
whatever. All these other things,
That's true.
But this seems to be attached not to him, but to his children. Like, why kids? Why does Paul pick on kids as a qualification?
No. Yeah, that's actually just a great question because it does seem external to the guy. You're right. And it is.
Yeah.
But it's actually not, right?
Okay.
And we would agree that it's actually internal to the dad. Why is that? Because every parent in the entire universe knows that their child reflects them.
Yeah,
They just do.
yeah,
Better or worse.
yeah. Even unbelievers would say the same.
No, and we see that everywhere. That's just a universal given.
Yeah.
Yeah, that like produces like.
Yeah.
And so if I'm a dad and my parenting is not under control, and I'm not dignified, and I'm just either super passive,
Right.
or I'm just super harsh,
Yeah.
it will come out in the child. They'll
Eventually.
be exasperated, and then they'll rebel.
Yeah.
Or they'll just be out of control, in dissipation.
Yeah.
Not, just not living a life that aligns with the parental instruction and authority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So
So it reflects his leadership at the end
it
of the
does.
day. Okay.
Which is why verse 5 says, look, if he can't even handle kids in his own house,
Yeah.
I mean, why give him a bigger sphere of influence?
yeah.
He will destroy the church.
Yeah, and in a sense, we were talking about this before the video paused the last time, but in a sense, it's actually not loving to that guy to give him responsibility that's in the church, which is a much larger responsibility in one sense, when his own house isn't under control.
You're right.
Because actually, all you're doing is you're essentially putting him in a place where he's destined to fail.
Yeah, we are setting him up for failure.
Yeah.
That's a great point. It is not loving, actually, right? It's only not loving to the church, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But again, when you put someone in any position in the business world, anywhere, sports, church, they're not ready for it, or they're not fit for that position. You're like, go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
And it's a big stage.
Yeah.
The bigger the stage, I mean, it's not just higher the stakes,
more
the
the
greater
pain,
the
yeah.
fall and pain will
Totally.
be. So,
So the equivalent of someone who can't balance their own checkbook to being the CFO of a company,
yeah.
it's just not going to work.
Yeah, I think...
No matter how gifted the guy may seem to be. But,
Someone once said this, and you could take this too far. Like,
Yeah.
their car's a mess.
yeah.
Like,
I
they
remember
should
that.
be running a
Yeah.
church. I think we have the same professor who said that.
Yeah.
And I think there's a sense where that's true.
Yeah.
And that's our point. It's like, if your own private life is a mess, in
Yeah.
this case with your children,
Yeah.
how can you...
How can you possibly manage the Church of God?
Yeah, and shepherd people's souls. Yeah.
That makes
That's
really
all
good
we're
sense.
saying, really. Or that's all Paul is saying.
So it does reflect character in a sense.
100%.
So would you say that this is a lifelong disqualification? Because the one on the husband of one wife, we talked about a lifelong disqualification. You have a
once
guy
you
who's an
do that,
elder, you
yeah.
violate that, you're essentially out for life.
Yeah.
What about a guy who maybe has kids, not necessarily under control, accused of rebellion?
Why?
You say,
This
like,
is a hard question.
I'm asking you,
I don't know if I can answer
but
this.
not for any particular reason. I'm just kidding.
My children are no. No. That's a great question. I think there's a different level there with the one-woman man qualification. I would say no. There would be a time where he would be disqualified if that came to light and it was just proven true. But I don't think it's a permanently disqualifying sin because, and I don't know if this thinking. Correct me if I'm wrong, honestly though. But like with adultery in a marriage, there's a divorce clause.
Yeah.
And that's how serious God takes it.
Yeah,
That
totally.
not only marriage, but how bad adultery is.
I agree.
I think in this case, we don't have that.
It's not the same
Yeah,
level.
adultery, breaching the marital one flesh union is it's just unique.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so I would say at least, the way I would answer that question is if I would say a guy who is made aware of a weakness in parenting through a rebellious child or through a dissipated child can step out of ministry for a season and go after that child, pursue them and seek them out and then essentially plead with them and win their
under
hearts
control.
over. Yeah. And as their heart is won over and as the dad proves his character to them, takes away some of the exasperation that maybe led to that situation.
And then
you're back to being qualified again.
I
the
think
child
so.
turns and things are okay.
I think so. And I think for any one of these, right, you're like seeing a guy who is maybe not respectable in a certain way and it's a trajectory.
Yeah.
I think there is a way back in, like you're saying. It takes time.
Yeah.
And the Lord will work on the man if he really has called him to eldership.
Yeah.
But there can be seasons where, I mean, it's not like an elder's bulletproof.
Yeah,
you
no,
know.
of
I mean,
course
we
not.
don't want to sin, obviously,
yeah.
but I don't know, right? We can't say
Yeah.
these are absolute. Always, you're going to be fine.
Yeah. Totally. No, that's super helpful. Well, thank you so much.
No,
Very,
awesome.
very helpful, very clarifying. We're going to be writing a position paper on this in
Yeah.
the near future.
Yeah,
but,
especially with Titus 1:6
Yeah.
to explain exegetically how you can arrive at
come to those conclusions.
Mhm.
Yeah, when I say we are going to be writing a position paper, I'm thinking more you should be writing the position. I mean, you did the Bible slash chat. It's already in your head, right? Just put it all on paper.
I forgot it all.
Oh,
it's just like
my.
studying for a test.
Yeah, that's
in
right.
high school. Just cram.
Something tells me you did just fine on tests in high school. Anyway, well, I hope that's helpful for you. Hope that's helpful. I think
Yeah.
a really interesting topic, but we'll pick up later on some more qualifications. Thanks for listening.